Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your host Jake. Scott couldn't make it today, but we traveled up to Lexington to check out RD1 Distillery's new location in the Lexington Commons. So sit back and buckle into the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. I am so thankful to be joined by Barry Brinegar, co-founder, national brand ambassador. You can't miss this beard anywhere in bourbon. So Barry, thanks for joining this episode of the Bourbon Lens, man.
Thanks, Jake. I'm super excited to be here talking with you. This has been a long time coming, right? We've rescheduled a couple of times, but yep. Man, what a best time to do a podcast together with our grand opening here.
Man, it is absolutely beautiful. I was talking to a couple people. I lived in Lexington 6 years myself. I don't think I've ever been to this part of town, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, the distillery district, like I'd been in Manchester and been to, everything over there. But this is just an untapped area, which is really cool to see that on the north side of Lexington, towards the interstate. How awesome is that you're, probably 10 minutes off the interstate. You're not far at all for anyone to get to.
So cool. Centrally located, so we're close enough to the distillery district really to be an extension of that and the new entertainment district as we're referring to the Commons Lex.
Yeah, and so I think Lexington continues to grow. When I was in college, this city is definitely not the same as it was, over a decade ago now, which is crazy. To think about. My mom got a time hop or whatever and said, "Oh, I got your graduation from your graduate degree," and I was like, "Oh man, 2014. That was 11 years ago." So I mean, like time flies when you're having fun. But man, talk about this. You go from a strip center basically in a really kind of old defunct factory to this gorgeous brand new building in a being the anchor tenant in a new development. What's that like for you and Chris and everybody?
Yeah, I think the whole team included, it is transformative to our brand. And I think that, this kind of brings home the original business plan, which was the bulk of our sales being at the brand destination. And where we were is a great location. The distillery district, still a great location to go to, but this kind of cements our spot in Lexington, Kentucky, as the anchor tenant of the Turner Commons here. It will truly be an entertainment district.
Yeah. And that's what I'm really excited about is Lexington continues to revitalize and grow. It's no longer just a college town.
Yeah.
It's got so much more to offer than the University of Kentucky.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you got this one guy named Coach Mark Stoops who, pretty invested into this, but, he would like to say it's still a college town, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and, he's first and foremost a Division I football coach, but, very important to the brand, was the first person that we spoke to when we were starting the company. And he was so enamored with the story and the liquid, he was like, I'm all in, and has been a great supporter of ours.
Well, as a former Kentucky football alumni like myself, I have to give Coach Stoops a shout out. If not, I didn't do myself justice to being an alumni of the football program, right? But you all are much more than that, right? And so you all have gone on a journey, right? Since 2020 to 2025, this brand's unrecognizable, really. And that's what I think. I was talking to Sydney, one of your all's great sales reps here, and she was like, in Kentucky, people know us as William Tarr. They still know us as that. And what's it like to overcome that here in Kentucky, the home of bourbon? But outside of here, people don't know William Tarr because it's a Kentucky thing only.
Right.
So what's it like to overcome that in your home state where you are trying to win the battleground, right? That's what it is. It's a fight every day to compete against every big boy in the marketplace.
And it was a total reset. So essentially coming out with RD1 we felt it was very important to the brand because we wanted to tell that whole story. William Tarr is a part of it. But the whole story is the historic nature of the first registered distillery to the city of Lexington, and then telling that bit of history and developing that, but writing that next chapter. So we really felt it was important not to focus on one individual, but focus on the whole of the brand from 1865 leading up into Prohibition, and then restarting this brand in January 2020, right before COVID.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the bottle changed, the design changed, and everything, and you all have started to get a lot of love for the liquid you've put together. And one of the, I think, probably the most interesting things that you've done, I'm going to skip the first two for right now, is the Ambriana, right? Because that green label right there is the one that can really put you in or put you out. And you all have done, probably from all things I hear, one of the more phenomenal jobs with Ambriana, because it's a very, very hard wood to work with.
It's polarizing, and I think that, as you had mentioned, any wood is going to express itself if you don't watch it. And I think that what we have done and what we've been able to create is a permanent Ambriana on the shelf. This is 50% of our sales across the U.S. market. So it's very polarizing. You know, aficionados, some of them like it. You know, some of them, it's a different, I mean, it's wild. It's outside the flavor wheel of bourbon. You know, so the nutmeg, clove, allspice, it really kind of leans into cachaça, if you're familiar with that Brazilian spirit. They use Ambriana to finish in it. So it's got tropical notes. So it goes from spicy to tropical, and it really does well in bourbon, but you've got to balance, you know, the whiskey with the wood.
Yeah, and that's what I found really hard, you know, for me. And you all did an elevated version of this. You did a 10-year that came out right around Kentucky Bourbon Festival last year. That I really liked because it muted it. That dark, rich original oak really kind of balanced out those hard cinnamon, sandalwood flavors. Because for me, Ambriana is so perfumey, right? Like. And I love French oak. French oak's great. It's also very fragrant wood, but Ambriana is the next level of fragrant and perfumey.
It is, and I'm glad you touched on that point of it being like a cologne or perfume. A lot of woods, that's how they make cologne and perfume, and so that's that balance. I want to get the sweet notes, but I don't want to go to a point where you're drinking something that is you should be wearing it instead. I think, you know, and that 10-year that came out, it just won gold at the San Francisco Spirits Awards this year. So it's Rickhouse funk. You know, if you've ever been into a Rickhouse, you know how you walk in, you smell that wonderful angel share, and then you get the wood, you get that leather, tobacco. You know, it is Rickhouse funk is what I like to say. The Ambriana just lightly touches it, lets you know it's there, but it's nowhere near the flavor profile of this one.
Exactly. And then, you know, moving on, just continuing on the flavor profile perspective, you have your breakfast bourbon, I like to call it. You know, so this maple one is wild. It's sweet. My co-partner Scott couldn't make it today. He fat washed that and made old fashions with it.
Oh yes, I've been wanting to do that.
And so, you know,
was it great mouthfeel?
Oh, it's just
terrific.
Thick, and it kind of made you feel like you were drinking bacon.
Yeah,
which I'm all about.
I am too.
Bacon, like that's where it was. And so he loved it. That was a little experiment he did. Fat washing's a thing. Like it's become a thing for everybody.
Right.
But you know, that one is my, like, if I want dessert or I want breakfast in a glass, like I don't need a breakfast Bloody Mary, I need a breakfast old fashioned with that guy.
Yeah, put a little black walnut bitters in there, really enhances and leans into, you get a pecan note from the wood. I like, personally, I take it a step further. I like smoked pork belly. So I'll do a smoked pork belly and I make this peanut butter maple sauce reduction, and then I pair that with the pork belly, just neat pour, old fashioned. It really works well. And I'll, you know, pro tip here, there is a oak and maple barrel strength at Frankendino's right here in downtown Lexington. It's at barrel strength. Make a Manhattan with that. Oh, again, next level, so delicious.
Yeah, and you know, there's more and more that comes out, and you all are doing some incredible things. And then you have your French oak, which is your basic, you know, perfumed, you know, whiskey. Not every American whiskey drinker is going to like that because French oak has a little bit more of that astringent note. But this one, they had the Lexington Lemonade, which they're now calling Lexington Margarita Bourbon. I don't know. They were changing the name upstairs on me. But that really just mellowed out, like with that lemonade concoction they had going on. Like that's a summer sipper all day long.
I love, you know, so for the cocktail in this one, I think it works well. The wood, the French oak, for me on my palate, I get more baking chocolate and stone fruit. So you can play with those flavor profiles. I absolutely enjoy a barrel strength of that. I think the French oak, you can leave it in the wood longer. You're not going to get this over influence, wood tannin.
For sure.
It's a tight wound wood that allows for longer finishing time.
Yep.
So some people are sensitive to wood finishing, and so they pick out the wood tannins. The 50% of consumers, when they taste that, it's baking chocolate and stone fruit. So delicious.
And this can technically be considered a double oaked, right?
It can, but because we are, we use the French oak staves that go into the existing American oak barrel. I think that it's also a good one in a when you're putting together two different wood finishes, and I'll touch on that at the end of here because it's our new LTO, and we'll want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's such a delight to work with.
And then you have your everyday workhorse, right?
Yeah,
you got your blue label, represents Lexington, everything about it.
Yeah.
Which is, a little bit under 100 proof, something that's approachable to everyone. Very good price point on this, under $50, right? And so at least 4 years old.
Right.
So you got a nice base with this liquid. So if this is 50%, how is this doing in market?
This one, we did take a price reduction on. It was $59, it's now $49. And what we found is that, the consumerism now has changed a little bit. So people are more discerning with how much they're going to spend on a bottle. So we really felt the need that to lower that price point. We have a liquid strategy for our straight bourbon to continue to age it out. And I can tell you, Jacob Call was the master distiller at Green River when he laid down the barrels that these bottles came from. He's now at Western Kentucky Distilling Company, and some RD1 partners are also partners in that distillery. So Jacob's laying down all of our new make and the mash bill on all of these 70 corn, 21 rye, non-malted barley. What I didn't want and what we did not want was to say, what are you covering up here? Well, we're not. Here, taste this, because that's where these come from.
Yeah, you always have to taste the base spirit, and that's what I think is super interesting. As we've looked at tequila finishes recently and some others, and I got something coming up this Thursday where we break down the finishing spirits. So it's really interesting is how many spirits have you tried in just French oak? You probably don't know, right? Or how many times have you had cachaça? You probably haven't. Or how many times have you had maple syrup out of a maple barrel? I don't know. So those are the things you have to really kind of understand when you're unpacking, 3, 4, or 2, 3, 4 here. Where this one is, it is what it is, because that's how a bourbon was made. And I think that's what you have to appreciate about it is you all, partnered with Jacob Call and the team, whether at Green River or now at Western Kentucky Spirits, to create this liquid. And that's what's nice about having a nice contract distilling partner is you're calling it, right? And you're telling them, hey, we want this, we want that, we want to use these yeasts and these strains, and they can make sure that you're making your product, even if you don't have the still. And that's going to help prevent flavor drift, which nobody wants to see that owns a brand. It's going to be consistent. There will be some differences because it's a different still and different location, but we've got a strategy in place to minimize that. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the nice thing about that. And every once in a while, right, you all go above and beyond, right? Previously you had a 12 and I think a 15 year with the old Tarr brand, and now you have a new 12-year-old LTO. It's in a beautiful decanter, silver, script writing on it. It's upstairs that people could purchase. I think it's $269.99. I think that's
no. This one's $800.
Oh, $800. I was wrong, guys.
But it's to commemorate our opening here. There's only 260 bottles.
Super limited.
Very, very super allocated. We probably already sold about 40 of those, so that it will sell out. But we really felt strongly that crystal decanter from Pavisa really accentuates the elevated nature of our brand, and it's a nice commemoration. And it's great liquid. It's barrel strength Kentucky straight bourbon at 12 years of age.
120.1 proof or 121.8. I think it's 60.9. I'm trying to do math on the fly here. So 121.8. Which is great. It's a beautiful bottle, and if you're around and you have that type of money to spend and you want to support the distillery, come on out, right?
That's right. Buy multiples if you want. Certainly understand if you're going to go for a value bourbon, but yeah, we certainly would love to see people.
Well, and this is a one-time thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to open up a brand destination like this where you're spending millions of dollars to make this happen. You're not going to do that often. So like having something to commemorate that and for people to be a part of that, I think is what the bourbon community is about. So you'll have the people that go and they'll be willing to spend that money.
Yeah.
So the other thing I find very interesting, and they mentioned it today at the ceremony, was really around only about 7% of the 2.7 million members came to the east side of the Bourbon Trail.
Right.
And we're seeing it inch this way, right? It's kind of buoyed by Buffalo Trace.
Right.
And they're not on the Bourbon Trail, I guess, technically. Wild Turkey, Four Roses, Castle and Key. But now you have another extension with you and Pepper having a really true homes here. What's that mean to you all to be a part of that expansion and hopefully growth to the eastern side of the state?
It's one of the reasons we started the brand was to create more bourbon tourism, to keep it in Lexington. You know, people come in, they fly in sometimes to Bluegrass Airport here in Lexington, Kentucky, and then they drive off to Frankfurt, they go to Bardstown. We felt strongly that Lexington and Central Kentucky needed to be on the Bourbon Trail, and we did check that box off. So in 2023, we were able to be established on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. So that's been a reason why we started seeing an increase in tourism to Lexington and Central Kentucky. So it's super important to us, you know, with this whole complex being built here at the Commons Lex. We're going to have a 2,000 person capacity amphitheater, you know. So what I found with bourbon, and the Bourbon Trail was tailored after Napa Valley and that whole Napa Valley experience. And so you're seeing the same thing continue to emerge and evolve with Kentucky. It's the and in bourbon. It's bourbon and a 4-star restaurant. It's bourbon and an entertainment complex. It's a bourbon and an advanced sensory tasting.
Yeah.
You know, people love the tours and should absolutely do them, but you know, bourbon brings people together, creating meaningful moments that you'll cherish forever.
That's true. And that's what I think it's all about. It's about creating those memorable moments, those line and demarcation where it's like, this is who we are, this is the opportunity. And you know, I think it's, again, going back to Lexington, how much it's grown over the last decade, and to be a part of that growth, I think is super vital because Lexington's trying to catch Louisville and one day might. Yeah. Right, because there's a lot of expansion to happen. Yeah. Now traffic is horrendous here. That's about the only downfall because Lexington traffic is 20 times worse than any traffic in the world.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I do a lot of traveling. I'm traveling 42 weeks out of the year, and you know, Lexington's bad. It doesn't compare to Chicago.
True.
You ever driven in Chicago? Oh my gosh,
Chicago's brutal. Chicago's brutal. California, LA, San Diego, it's also brutal.
Yeah, but Dallas, I mean, Fort Worth, Houston.
We complain about our small, under 1 million people cities. Let us be frank. If you can look at us and say you're crazy, go drive Nicholasville Road at 5 p.m. and then you'll think about, oh man, it's like gridlock on the 101.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So you know, that's just a funny point aside. Yeah. So you know, as you all think about, you know, the Tennyson family, yourself, Coach Stoops, all the other investors, as you all think about the next 2 to 3 years, right? It's nice to have a line of demarcation saying, hey, we opened this today. But what's the next 3 to 5 years look like for you all?
I think the next 3 to 5 years is innovation, it's expansion. We're looking outside the U.S. I mean, we're already talking to you know, several different countries. It's looking at how can we continue to leverage Kentucky as a bourbon destination. And you know, I talked to Eric Gregory with the KDA today, and one of the things, there's an initiative to continue to build out Kentucky bourbon. And you know, so for me, when I'm going out, you know, the next 3 to 5 years, I'm talking about Kentucky. As you know, have you ever been on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail? Yeah. We'd love to see you come down here, visit RD1 while you visit other member distilleries. Yeah. You know, I think that we need to continue to figure out how to promote both inside the U.S. and outside the U.S. Kentucky as a bourbon destination. We make 95% of all the world's bourbon, but I think a lot of outside the U.S. consumers understand that or don't understand the importance of Kentucky to bourbon.
I think it's much like Scotland, right? You know Scotch whiskey, right? You know that country. Scotland's a lot smaller than America.
Right.
Scotland's probably the size of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And so you think about all the production, the liquid that's being produced out of these massive column still distilleries. And, you know, Heaven Hill has, in Buffalo Trace, you know, you add up the barrels they have aging, there's more people, there's less people in the state of Kentucky than those two people have aging barrels. You know, you think about that. They have got almost 4 million barrels aging in those two places. So you think about all the other barrels being laid down in addition to that. It's almost like Kentuckians need to have a birthright. That's my barrel. But that's neither here nor there. That's something we can talk to Governor Beshear about. You know, your right to purchase a barrel in a lifetime. That will not fly. The TTB, all the government agencies will not like that idea. But I like
for it.
I see. But you have to be born in Kentucky. You can't move here and then get a barrel.
You don't get a barrel unless you're born in Kentucky.
Exactly. That's it.
Kentucky born and bred.
Yeah, and just like the barrel was. Yeah. So you were onto something. But you know, I think that's always fun is to look 3 to 5 years. And the one thing we've kind of hit on everybody with this one, and just your. With all the whiskey in the market, how do you all stay afloat? And I hate the term glut, so I'm not going to talk about that. But how do you stay afloat and stay top of mind in a market where people are wanting that elevated experience?
Yeah, well, two different things there. You've got to create brand awareness by marketing. You know, your marketing has to lead that awareness, but there also has to be a sales component to it, you know, to stay afloat. You know, we have to be profitable. We haven't checked that box off yet. We're hoping to very soon, but you know, it's a combination of awareness. And, you know, so I like to go where the fish are. So I reach out to bourbon clubs and, you know, bourbon influencers. And when I'm in different markets, trying to meet up with them, talk about the brand. And then, of course, you know, it's still the whiskey festivals is how we're able to get in front of a lot of people in a very short amount of time. It all matters. You know, we consume first with our eyes. So if you don't have eyes on your product, if you don't have eyes on your marketing message, you're missing a key component of consumption. Yeah,
for sure. And to borrow a term from Randy Prossi, the director of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, sips to lips. I mean, that's what sells, right? I have to taste it to want to buy it. It's hard to go in, you know, post-COVID, you don't see tasting pop-ups at stores anymore. So, you know, taking advantage of those captive audience where there's 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10,000 people, getting them to try your liquid. And then now, like even at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, there's still single-day tickets left. So if you're still interested, buy a ticket for Sunday. You know, I'm sure you all do a great job selling bottles there because that's a great opportunity for just about anybody.
Yeah, we do a great job there. We just came back from Owensboro for there was a barbecue and barrel festival this last weekend. We sold 30 bottles there, you know, so it's always good to get in, like you said, get in front of people. But in Kentucky, the KDA has helped with legislation to allow the distilleries to be able to sell. You know, before we couldn't sell at fairs and festivals, even though brewers and wineries could. We're now on a level playing field to be able to do that. So, you know, these festivals in the state of Kentucky are very meaningful to us.
Now we need to get them to be able to ship through USPS.
Yes.
So that's neither here nor there, winemakers. We're coming for you. You know, I always got to get a shot at those people. But Barry, man, congratulations. Like,
Thank
this is awesome. If you are in Lexington, Kentucky, if you're planning a trip to come see a Kentucky basketball game or come to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail on the east side of the state, well, it's actually central, but East Bourbon Trail, any of that, make sure that you are signing up to come here to do a tour. They're probably going to have walk-ins, but you know, always register. The tours are going to book up so quick. They're going to have sensory experiences. There's a bar upstairs. There's so much to do here. So Whatever it is, make sure you stop at RD1's, and the Commons is going to be great. So check back in over the next several years, as this place is going to be booming here shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give one plug to a new LTO, an allocated bourbon and rye whiskey. So it's an 8-year Kentucky straight rye and a 5 and 7-year Kentucky straight bourbon. It's extra finish in Mizunara wood from Japan and French oak from France. It's called Sister Cities, based on Lexington having sister cities in those two countries. It's 102 proof. It is very well balanced from the aroma to the palate to the finish. You get the floral notes from that 8-year rye. You get some wonderful sweet notes from the French oak. And then the Mizunara comes on the back end with a little spice, a little Japanese incense. It is wonderful. So I don't know if you tried a pour, but let's go upstairs and try a pour.
You're gonna have to try one before we leave. So thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. I gotta go.